past days that I've celebrated, I've talked about the letter to the Hebrews, but I'm going to give you a break from that today. Let's talk about the Sabbath. Jesus and his disciples are walking through the field, and as they're walking along, the disciples are just grabbing a few pieces of grain, throwing it in their mouth, a little snack. And the Pharisees are really bummed out about that because they are working on the Sabbath. Now, technically, according to the law, they could do this. They couldn't harvest grain, but they could take pieces for a snack. But the Pharisees always wanted to take the law to its widest possible extent. To build a fence around the law is their phrase. So they said even taking these few pieces of grain, that's breaking the law. I'll give you an example. It says you can't make fire on the Sabbath. So, when does the Sabbath begin? Sundown. What is sundown? Well, there's two definitions. When you can look into the sky and see 3 stars at the same glance. But I'm from Buffalo, and there's months we don't see the sun at all. So when you can look at arm's length, look at a piece of thread, and you can't distinguish its color, that's sundown. What is making fire? You can't light a match, can't use a gas stove, can't drive a gas car. Can you turn on an electric light? No, because if there's a short circuit, you've made fire, so you would have sinned. So what do you do if you're in a 34-story hotel in Tel Aviv on the Sabbath? They have elevators that automatically stop at every other floor, so you don't have to push a button. So notice how scrupulous this can get. And that's what Jesus was fighting. That's why he said to the Pharisees, the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. The Pharisees thought they could interpret what to do and what not to do with all these scrupulous rules. The Son of Man, Jesus, says, I'm the one who will interpret. So he's sort of putting the Pharisees out of work, saying that he's not going to interpret this law to punish people, but rather to bring out their dignity. And that's what we hear in the first part of that verse. The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. A lot of times in the confessional, people come in and they'll confess, I washed a load of washing on the Sabbath, I cut grass on the Sabbath, this and that. And we have the temptation of getting into the idea, how much work can I do on the Sabbath before it breaks the Sabbath rest? And that's the whole wrong point of view. We are supposed to rest because we need rest. And in fact, now working on the Sabbath, it's not a question of following certain prescriptions. It's a question of being human. We're working like animals. We kill ourselves with work. We've got to pull back and take a rest. It reminds me of that Jamaican song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. You remember that? That's what we're talking about. Just taking time to catch our breath, to be human, to watch a good film. One of my doctors over at Hopkins, he's a Mormon, and I asked him the day after the Super Bowl, did you like the game? He said, I just saw the highlights this morning. I couldn't watch it yesterday. I says, why not? He says, my family, we don't watch TV on the Sabbath. I was humbled. To take a day off, to be with the Lord, to be with ourselves, and even to be with those who most need our love. Pope John Paul II reminds us of that. Sabbath is a good day to visit a nursing home, to visit a prison, to bring kindness, especially when we've received the Eucharist at Mass. Bring a little bit of that love that we received and share it with others. But not as a task, not one more thing to put on our list, but as something to just share the love that we have. Now, one other thing about the Sabbath. Sabbath means the seventh day. Some of us have passed the 70th year, so we're in the sabbatical part of our life. Father, I'm lazy. I took too many naps. Give it a break. At 70, we don't have the energy we did when we were 30. We shouldn't expect ourselves to be able to do everything we did before. And maybe even the fact we can't do it means that the responsibilities would be left to someone else. If you're living and cleaning the house is getting difficult, think of hiring someone to come in once a week. But don't do what my mother did. Every time the maid would come in, she'd clean the house before she got there. To recognize the seasons of our life and to respect them. And to realize, even with the sins that we commit, one lady came in and says, Father, I'm not doing any big sins anymore. I'm 80. I don't have the energy. And there is a certain truth to that, but now a lot of the sins are up here. They're not so much what we do or don't do. It's what we think, how we judge, stuff like that. These seasons of our life, these days of rest, they were made for us, not us for them. And so again, not to look at it as an obligation or one more thing to do, but rather to look at it as a gift. You have a day of vacation a week. Now, it's easy to say that when I don't have to take care of 5 kids. Realistically, with a young family, there's a lot more work to take care of. But I even remember when I was small, there were 4 of us at home. On Sunday, we'd all rush into the car and take a drive. We weren't going anywhere. We were just driving in the car together. And we wouldn't have dared say, are we there yet? Because we were here, and that's what counted, here as a family.